Today on the Big 6 in 60, the Hornets win a thriller in overtime against the Heat.
A revenge win for the Hornets.
The Blazers are in the playoffs after a big win over the Suns.
The Trailblazers delivering in the fourth quarter.
And Michael Malone gets busy in the transfer portal.
Big picture, out of all of Monday's chaos,
this is the Big 6 in 60, the 6 biggest national sports stories from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now. Thank you for making the Big 6 in 60 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Hornets survived a thriller, beating the Heat 127-126 in overtime on LaMelo Ball's go-ahead layup. Doug Branson has more on Locked On Hornets.
The Hornets just won a play-in game, 127-126 over the Miami Heat, delivering Miami their first play-in loss, a revenge win for the Hornets, their last playoff defeat coming at the hands of the Miami Heat, a team that has constantly given them problems in a number of areas. So, in all the clutch baskets, overtime, Kobe White was incredible. Miles Bridges was incredible. LaMelo delivers the game-winning shot, the go-ahead bucket, after missing, I believe, 9 straight three-pointers in the second half in overtime. The ball still finds him, and he still finds the will to get this team over the hump and into an opportunity to advance into the playoffs. Excuse me if I don't go extremely buck wild on this episode. Trust me, I want to. But first of all, I've got a baby. I don't know if you know that I have a baby, and the baby is just the baby's room is just a few feet from me. So tune in tomorrow when Walker, my co-host, WFNZ 12 to 3, Wes and Walker, War Cry Wednesday. Tomorrow is going to be buck wild. This show is going to be buck wild. I'm going to try to center my energy. I feel like I'm numb from the waist down. Just that game was incredible. I just closed my laptop at the end of the game and I just ran up and down the hallway of the house, quietly, screaming on the inside. Can't wake the baby. But I was just running up and down the halls. Typically I would end the episode with Sicko celebrations, something that has become a tradition on this show. The folks that are in the Sicko Brigade, joinsubtext.com/Locked On Hornets, the truest, the sickest of the sickos, do celebrations, lamentations when the Hornets lose, but the Hornets did not lose. No. They won, and they won in the most incredible fashion that I think they could have possibly won. And so I'm just going to start this episode with some sicko celebrations, and I think it'll be a perfect entry point because I'm sure that the sickos will have everything covered here. We go first to David from Gastonia's 00 Hawes Battalion, who said the ups and downs of that game will be robbing me of sleep tonight. Oh my God, David is exactly right. The Hornets absolutely were going to win that game and absolutely were going to lose that game so many times because one of the Hornets' strengths, maybe the Hornets' strength this year, has been shooting from the outside, 3-point shots. And really like just pull up shooting, just like straight, I'm going to pop this in your eye. It could, most of the time it's open, but the Hornets have been able to hit contested threes as well. But in this game, 3-pointers, 32%, 18 of 56. And I mentioned LaMelo Ball, one of their best 3-point shooters, finished just 1 3-pointer behind Con Knippel for the NBA's lead in 3-pointers made. Couldn't hit a shot in the second half or overtime. And he was joined by the guy who was 1 3-pointer ahead of him. Con Knippel, the rookie, was not shooting the ball well at all in this game as well. 6 points in 34 minutes, 2 of 12 from the field. LaMelo Ball finishing 2 of 16 from 3. Con Knippel missing all 6 of his 3-pointers. If I just give you that information, if I tell you LaMelo Ball 2 of 16 from 3, if I tell you Grant Williams 1 of 5 from 3, and Con Knippel 0 of 6 from 3, you might say, wow, yeah, against the Miami Heat in a play-in situation where they had come in never having lost in a play-in game. The Hornets 0-12 all time as a franchise in elimination games. If I had given you all of that information, you would have said, Doug, I'm sorry. They lost. They probably put up a valiant effort. The Charlotte Hornets, they are very good at putting up valiant efforts, but they just fell short. And I would say, no. They did not. They actually won this game. Why? Because Kobe White just went into a different universe. 19 points, felt like he scored 49 because of the level of difficulty on the shots that he was making from the corner. 7 of 15 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, but 5 of 8 from the three-point line. Scored 11 straight points to give them a 6-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and then, of course, hits that huge shot in the fourth quarter to help force overtime. And I just wrote, well, first of all, the buzzer beater that he hit going into the fourth quarter, I wrote in my notebook, Kobe White, how, who, what, why, wherefore art thou? Buzzer beater, 11 straight Kobe points to take a 6-point lead into the fourth quarter. And then in the Kobe White shot that he hit in the fourth quarter to force overtime, how, why, who, what, wherein, werewolf? I don't know, like all the questions. I just have no idea how Kobe White found it within himself to catch it in the corner. And let's go to that bucket to send it into overtime. Because Kobe catches it in the corner, and the Hornets knew no timeouts, and they needed a 3 to tie. They knew that the foul was coming from Miami's end. You really could not, like Eric Spoelstra's too smart, been in this situation too many times. If they inbound that ball, if Sion James, the rookie, given the responsibility to inbound the basketball, if he gives that ball to LaMelo at the top of the floor, LaMelo's getting fouled. Brandon's getting fouled. Instead, they run several things. It looked like a few things broke down. Kobe White was there in the corner, off all the balance, and knocks it down. And you can't take for granted that Sion James twice, once in overtime, and then he was the inbounder on the play that got LaMelo the go-ahead bucket. Sion James gets that ball inbounded. And when I say that this game, first of all, let me just say this. That was the greatest Hornets game I've ever witnessed. And I go all the way back to the Glenn Rice days. I may have caught a couple of games as a young child in the Zoe Muggsy, LJ era. I certainly have watched the Celtics win where Zoe hits the buzzer beater for the first playoff series victory over the Boston Celtics. I've watched that final game start to finish. But just like 5 or 6 years ago as part of something for every Hornets box score and Locked On Hornets. I didn't watch it live. This is the greatest Hornets game that I've ever watched live. And I would say certainly historically that the call from Steve Martin, the Zoe shot, the Coliseum, like I'm sure there's going to be some OGs out there that say, hey, that was a playoff series win. Okay, this was a play-in win. The Hornets aren't even in the playoffs yet. This wasn't even a win to get in situation. I would just say, having been in the trenches with the Sickos for more than a decade now, but a decade since their last playoff appearance, I would say that this game did so much in terms of exercising demons. The demons.
The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, the extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. As we round out the regular season, the Celtics play the Knicks in Madison Square Garden tonight. Line is at -5 on FanDuel. If you want to go the other way, Boston money line is 176, plus 176 on that line. Head over to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Big 6 in 60. The Trailblazers punched their playoff ticket by rallying past the Suns last night, with Deni Avdija erupting for 41 points and delivering the go-ahead 3-point play in the final seconds. Mike Richmond from Locked On Blazers explains how that win sends Portland into the playoffs for the first time in 4 years.
The Trailblazers delivering in the fourth quarter. A superstar moment from Deni Avdija. And the Portland Trailblazers, the fighting pinwheels, headed to the playoffs as the 7th seed in the West after taking down the Suns in a comeback victory in Phoenix on Tuesday night. The culmination of quite a season that isn't over yet. They're headed to the playoffs. They've officially punched their ticket. We'll get into everything that happened in this play-in game. Deni Avdija was magnificent. Best player on the court, as some podcasters had boldly stated, truthfully so on yesterday's program. Best player on the court. A game-winning bucket. And monster plays down the stretch. Jeremy Grant plays his first game in April since 2021. He's played 2 games in April since 2019. First April game in 5 years. Welcome back. April showers. Huge final 3 minutes from JG. We'll get into all of that. Blazers win in Phoenix 114-110. Deni Avdija, 41 points, 7 boards, 12 assists, 15 of 22 from the floor, got to the free throw line for 13 times, made 8 of them, missed some shots in that third quarter. Jeremy Grant, awesome off the bench. Shaedon Sharpe did his thing, better first half than second half, in my humble opinion. And the Blazers withstood pretty monster Jalen Green first half and potential game-winning bucket at the end to make plays. They just did what they had to do. Now they're headed to the stinking playoffs. We're going to do fastest recap in the West here. There's a lot to get into today. I'm going to try to fit it into a normal show, but we'll have shows the rest of the week looking ahead to what's next. The Blazers are heading to San Antonio. They'll play the Spurs. They'll face Victor Wembanyama in his first playoff series. We'll get into all of that in future shows. Today we're going to focus on this play-in game. We'll start with our fastest recap in the West here. Now that we're 3 minutes in of excitement. Blazers up 2 after 1. They got a lot of early foul trouble. They committed 4 fouls in the first 3:20 of this game, and they're crushing the offensive glass and not making anything. And it looks for a moment there in that first quarter that Phoenix just, they were making shots, right? They're just acing middies, and it feels like, if Jalen Green and Devin Booker are going to shoot like this, Blazers might be in trouble. And Deni Avdija just hadn't done anything. He didn't make a basket, like a field goal, until it was 1:43 left in the first quarter. And that was his first real downhill drive of the game. He spent the first 10 minutes of the game trying to kind of figure out where and how he was going to attack, which is not very Deni-like, quite frankly. When he has big games, he usually has monster games right away, right? Like he's such an aggressive tone setter. But in this one, I thought the Suns' defense and the way they kind of just like walled off the paint early made it tough on Deni, right? And to be where they were, they were down to 31 Suns. To be where they were, just down 2. It felt like they'd be okay. Deni made a layup with about 1:45 left, another one with just before the first quarter buzzer. Blazers down 2 after 1, and then Deni got going. Then he starts to figure out how it's going to work. He makes those 2 layups right at the end of the first quarter, and it's like, okay. I've got it dialed now. He has 12 in the second quarter, and he only had 1 free throw attempt in that second quarter. He was doing what he needed to do. He made a couple 3-pointers, but he's getting downhill and getting to the rim. Like he was finding his rhythm, and this wasn't just like one of those Deni, smash into someone's arms and get points. Like he had all of a sudden, after 10 minutes of kind of feeling out the Suns' defense and figuring out what they needed to do, he was getting into the paint, and the Blazers were making everything. The first 18 minutes of this game, they were acing threes and they had 1 turnover. And it's like, and then they're up 14 at one point in the second quarter. And it's like, okay, if you're up 14 and you're making all those shots, you're going to feel really good about it. But they just closed so poorly in the second quarter. they hit a three with Drew Holiday hits a three with 9 seconds left in the second quarter to put them up 7. Feels like, okay, they're going to be in good shape. And then Jalen Green comes down, and it's like Tumani Kamara kind of stops him as he's about to push, and Jalen Green, like, crossover, tween. He's going to like get into a jumper, right? Like he's kind of has that body language. And it's like, just don't foul him. And he kind of snakes from the right wing to the top of the key, and Tumani Kamara fouls him. He hits a 4-point play, and now it's a 3-point game heading into halftime. And it's a 3-point game heading into halftime, despite the fact that the Blazers are 12 of 27 from 3, and like the Suns are 4 of 12. Like they're not making shots. They've been a higher volume 3-point shooting team, but they weren't particularly early in this game a high volume 3-point shooting team because Jalen Green's making a bunch of mid-range jumpers. He had 22 points on 8 of 14 shooting in the first half. But I felt like that close to that second quarter was just bad news, and it's like, they've had some really nice games. Like Jeremy Grant and Shaedon Sharpe each hit 2 threes off the bench in the first half. Drew Holiday hit 3 threes and has 14 points. And Deni has 16 at the break because he's kind of figured out what he needs to do in that second quarter. But to be up just 3, 65-62 heading into the second half, after the way they shot, you kind of feel like this could be bad news. But they don't give up the lead in the third quarter. The Blazers never surrender the lead. They can't make anything, though, after halftime. They're 6 of 20 in the third quarter. They go just 1 of 11 from 3. The Suns didn't shoot much better. 8 of 23, 2 of 8. Deni keeps rolling, though. He's not making threes, but he starts to get to the free throw line in the second half. He has 11 more in the third quarter. Through 3 quarters, Deni Avdija has 27 points, 4 boards, and 9 assists. It's like, okay. And again, the Blazers, despite not shooting well, they pushed what was a 3-point lead at halftime to as many as 11 in the third quarter. And again, the Blazers let the Suns close the third strong. Portland was up 10, 79-69 with 5:26 left in the third quarter. Things are about to go south for the Portland Trail Blazers in a hurry. They score 4 points over the final 5 minutes of the third. Then the Suns open the fourth quarter on an 11-0 run, and they are sitting on a 24-4 run at the 9-11 mark. They're up 10 with 8.5 minutes left. Suns are up 11 at the 6:41 mark of the fourth quarter. Now, following back to that third where the Blazers are up 10 and have 79 points, well, they have managed to score just 10 points over 11 minutes and 45 seconds of game time, from the 5:26 mark to the 6:41 mark of the third to the 6:41 mark of the fourth. 11 minutes and 45 seconds of game time. Oh no, they had gone 4 of 18, 0 of 7 from 3, and 2 of 6 from the free throw line. All of those free throws are Deni's. He missed 4 free throws, including a technical free throw in a sequence where he missed 2, to go with 5 turnovers. The Blazers, in basically a quarter of basketball, have more turnovers, 5, than they do field goals. They're going to win this game in dramatic and thrilling fashion. But they basically played an entire quarter where they could not score and things were going south. They're down 11 with 6:40 left in this game. At that point, in the second half, the Blazers are 1 of 15 from 3. I will remind you that they were 12 of 27 from 3 in the first half. They can't make anything. They cannot make, they've just gone cold. They missed 11 straight 3-pointers at one point. But they stick with it. From down 11, they find themselves down 6 with just about 3 minutes left. They rip off basically from the 6-minute mark. They score like 8 quick ones to kind of like, okay, we're back in the game, but they never get all the way back. Then Jeremy Grant hits a huge 3, 2:54 left. In these final 3 minutes, Jeremy Grant is going to be awesome. He has 8 points, a steal, and a block. All massive buckets. I mean, the last bucket was a dunk just to seal the game. So really, all massive plays. And the dunk, which was icing. But he hits a right corner 3. Shaedon Sharpe finds him in the corner. Jeremy Grant, that's his sweet spot. That's his comfort zone. Hits a right corner 3. 3-point game, 3 minutes left. It's like, okay, after all this, they're still somehow in it. Then next Suns possession, Jalen Green gets to the rim and Jeremy Grant snatches a Jalen Green layup attempt at the rim. They go the other way. Deni Avdija throws an alley-oop to Shaedon Sharpe and they foul him on the break. He hits 2 free throws. Then after Devin Booker splits 2 free throws, Deni again drives all the way down the paint on the left side. Suns help and Deni fires a rocket to the corner and Jeremy Grant hits a 3 and the Blazers are up 107-106. Bang. 2-minute mark. They've taken the lead back after just a dreadful middle of the third to the middle of the fourth. But Devin Booker draws a foul, hits 2 free throws. Blazers are going to get it back down 1 with 1:30 left, and Drew Holiday turns the ball over. But Devin Booker can't score on the other end. The Blazers play good defense again as the Suns are trying to run clock. The Blazers get the ball, off a miss and push with under 50 seconds left. And Deni Avdija sees that he has Jalen Green on him and just drives right to the rack, finger roll, don't wait. Just drive right to the rack, finger roll against a player you have physical advantage against. Blazers go back up 1 with 37.3 seconds left. Out of a timeout, the Suns are going to go to their bread and butter, and the Blazers, for the first time all year, I think, put what are their 5 best defenders on the court. Perimeter defenders, like to switch. They go with Matisse Thybulle, Drew Holiday, Toumani Camara, Jeremy Grant, and Chris Murray. And they immediately give up a layup. And they immediately give up a layup. Like 6 seconds into the possession, Toumani gets caught. They're switching stuff off the ball in the inbounds play. And Toumani gets caught kind of over-helping, watching the ball. And Devin Booker just fires a pass inside, and Jordan Goodwin gets a layup, and Toumani fouls him. It's a terrible foul. But Goodwin misses the free throw. So the Blazers are going to get the ball down 1 with 31.1 seconds left. And Deni Avdija is about to show his superstar status. The previous possession, he gave the Blazers the lead, but they couldn't hold it. And now he's going to have to do it again.
The Heat saw its season come to an end in that overtime loss to the Hornets, a play-in game that ended with Davion Mitchell getting blocked at the buzzer. Wes Goldberg and David Rammel from Locked On Heat react to the play-in exit.
What was your big takeaway from tonight?
It was a really interesting game, right? And I think that's putting it mildly, but exciting too. Like there was a lot of back and forth. It seemed like both teams went on a number of runs throughout the game. They would go up 8 and Miami would go up 8. And then it was back and forth all game long, even at the very second. Obviously Miami had a brief lead going into the end of regular time. And then of course they wound up tying the game there with a fantastic shot from Kobe White. They go into overtime. Tyler Hero winds up hitting, free throws with just 8 seconds left in the game. And you think, Miami might actually have a chance to win it. And then, of course, the game-winning shot from LaMelo Ball with just 4 seconds left. And then Davion Mitchell racing up court to try and see if he can generate something without any timeouts left. And the shot gets blocked by Miles Bridges, and it falls apart very quickly there. And I think that's the takeaway from me is how good Miami played. They might have played their best game of the season tonight. They did really well, considering the fact that they had no Bam Adebayo out there, the anchor of their defense, and somebody who was scoring at will against a good young center in Moussa Diabate, and he was just doing everything. Like he had his rebound numbers were good. In 11 minutes of play, he was really solid defensively, doing everything. It looked like they were going to be able to feed Bam in the low post and have him just go to work and have him just create offense that way. And then for Bam to get hurt the way he did, Miami had no business being in this game for the rest of the game. And they were very competitive throughout. They hit their shots. They showed a sense of urgency. It was clear, despite what we've seen over the last few weeks, that they did want to win this game. And there was, again, that kind of desire, the sense of urgency that we just hadn't seen over the last few weeks of the season. And they played as good a game as you could possibly expect for this group, doing all the little things, as you've said a number of times, winning on the margins. They had a really solid game plan. They used the zone defense effectively. Their offense was really good. Their passing was crisp. It was a really high-intensity, high-energy game, and they did everything as well as possible, and ultimately it didn't matter. And I think that's where it kind of comes down to for me is that Miami's just not good enough. We talked about it in our preview of the game that everything has to break right for Miami in order for them to have a chance to win. Well, everything almost broke right. Like they played as good a game as possible, but they're just not good enough, especially with the home court advantage for Charlotte there. They just wind up losing a game that honestly they were probably far too competitive in, despite the fact that they had no Bam Adebayo. I didn't expect them to be as good as they were, and yet I think it's just kind of an indicator of this season. Everything's been so inconsistent for them. They played a really solid game and just not good enough to get a win anyway.
It's interesting that you said almost everything went right for the Heat in this game, because I had the opposite. I felt like almost everything went wrong for the Heat. I said everything needed to go right for the Heat to win this game. And almost from the beginning, you lose Bam Adebayo after 11 minutes. He's your best player. You're starting. It's going back and forth. You're starting to figure out, okay, if we just get Bam in the post at the end of the first quarter, you start figuring this out. He's 3 for 3. Nobody could stop him. And then he goes down with this crazy dirty LaMelo play that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But he goes down. Moussa Diabate is dominating on the boards. 8 offensive rebounds, 15 rebounds overall. You lose the offensive rebounding battle. You lose the turnover battle by a smidge, just by 1. The Hornets are committing fouls, but none of the fun fouls that send you to the free throw line, so you're not getting that advantage either. To me, Tyler Hero can't make a shot to begin the game. Norm Powell can't really make a shot. To me, everything was going wrong for Miami, and yet I keep looking up and I'm like, why are they leading by 1? Why is this game close? What is going on here? I did have a similar takeaway overall, though, to you, and this might sound cheesy, David. I'm proud of the way they played in this game, man. Like, I'm just proud of them. You know, Bam goes down. You have every reason to throw in the towel.
Absolutely.
This was a team that didn't show a lot of urgency, to your point, in this season, but something about the stakes of a play-in tournament gets this team riled up, and Davion Mitchell has only his second 20-point game of the season. Right. A starting point guard in the NBA, imagine that. Like, it's unreal. Wiggins just Undertaker up from the grave all of a sudden. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm awesome again. Kel'el Ware, maybe his best game of his career, considering what the stakes were. Close. This is what it is to be the Miami Heat. Every other team rolls over in this scenario. The Heat don't. They somehow get stronger. I've likened them to Goku as a Super Saiyan. Like, Saiyans don't die, they just get stronger. This is what the Miami Heat do. They compete till the very end. When the stakes are highest, when the lights are brightest, they rally. When Bam goes down, like I said, most teams would fold. A lot of teams would fold. A lot of teams, if not fold, at very least be rattled. The Heat were not rattled. If anything, the Hornets got rattled after that, right? LaMelo's committing frustration fouls. Brandon Miller's committing frustration fouls. The Heat come back, and all those things happen. And I'm like, oh, my God. This is what the Miami Heat are. And not to necessarily take it there, but I'm going to take it there. I can't help but think what Giannis was thinking when he was watching this game.
No.
Because
that
quote from Joe, Giannis talked about talking to a Celtics player, and he said, quote, everything about my decision is based on winning culture. Like you saw, I talked with Boston coach Joe Mazzulla. I said, you had so many opportunities to make excuses, but you didn't, end quote. He could say the exact same thing about the Miami Heat, at least tonight. The Heat are obviously not in the playoffs. Their season is over. The Celtics are the 2 seed. They might go to the NBA Finals. All these things. It's where the comparison falls short. But in terms of the winning culture, not making excuses, that was there tonight.
All right, fine. I'm fine. I could see that perspective, but I think it's a little too soon.
Welcome back to the Big 6 in 60. North Carolina landed its first portal edition under Michael Malone, bringing in Neo of Dallas after the 6'9" guard averaged 12.1 points last season at Virginia Tech. Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels explains what he'll bring to the backcourt.
Big picture, out of all of Monday's chaos, which we'll mention, maybe we'll itemize it here in a minute. But before we get to that, I want to ask you, in your mind, what do all of those moves teach us about Michael Malone?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. Always happy to come on. You do a great job too, Isaac. So very, very happy to come on. I think the biggest thing that we learned is that Michael Malone from the jump, and we kind of knew this was going to be the case, but these moves have validated it. He is swinging for the fences, and very much in the same mindset, I think, that North Carolina, with whoever it was going to hire as head coach, was going to go big game hunting. Michael Malone and his staff are doing the exact same thing with their roster. This is not a guy who is coming into, as he said, losing the first round of the ACC tournament. He's making himself very familiar in Tobacco Road right off the jump. And I think that the portal moves, the overall roster decisions that North Carolina has made so far kind of hinted that already. This is a guy who is trying to build a contender very much in year one.
Yeah, I love it because it's you swing for the fences with your coach, who then immediately, as you said, swings for the fences with the decisions. Thus, I would imagine for both Bubba Cunningham and Steve Newmark and the Chancellor kind of validating what they thought they were getting in Michael Malone, and he's doing, I think, what they hoped he would do. And it's funny as I sit and think about it, Brendan, I'm curious. I feel like Coach Malone was immediately more forthcoming in his welcoming his initial press conference than we typically got from Hubert Davis. And as I think about the personnel and all the portal stuff, I'm wondering if he'll be the same in how he talks about personnel versus how Coach Davis was often not very forthcoming about personnel.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was most illuminating from his introductory press conference was when he verbatim said, it's going to look a little different. That's okay. Embrace it. And for some North Carolina fans who are used to the secondary break and who have been, watching UNC play for generations, that might have been a little uncomfortable to hear. The reality is North Carolina, from a basketball standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, from a, overall top to bottom program standpoint, especially from my perspective as someone who, covers the sport more broadly nationally, UNC needed a facelift. And so this is a guy who has come in, I think will be able to do that. You look at his staff, the fact that he's going outside of the UNC family. That is something that I've advocated for UNC to do for a long time. I think that diversity of thought, especially in today's game, is more important than ever. And again, we'll get to Malone's staff a little bit later, I'm sure. But overall, this is a much needed change, I think, for North Carolina. And nothing that Michael Malone has done so far or hasn't done so far, I think has sort of changed the idea that this is a guy who's going to bring Carolina into the modern era in a lot of ways.
I like how you put that, Brendan. And I would imagine a few people are confused by when you just said what he hasn't done. Can you elaborate? Because I'm tracking with you, but say more about what you mean by that.
Yeah. And, I hesitate to go, for me especially, it's easy to make comparisons down the road, right? In Tobacco Road, you've got two blue blood programs. They both went through coaching changes at the same time. And you saw this a couple of years ago at Duke where there was massive roster turnover. And you're seeing massive roster turnover right now at North Carolina. Obviously, Jaron Stevenson is going to be back. We'll see what happens with a couple of other guys who haven't announced yet. And I think that that's painful for certain fans. And you want to see guys be there for multiple years and develop. And throughout the course of the season, you say, hey, wow, that guy's got potential. And, obviously coming off just of having, Armando Bacot and RJ Davis and Leaky Black and Seth Trimble, like UNC fans, I think, value that, as much as any fan base that I have dealt with in the country. But at the same time, this is a team that was up and down for most of the year. This is a team that went one and done in the NCAA tournament. This is a team, and I know that Caleb Wilson wasn't a part of it. This is a team that blew a 19-point lead in the first round. And so I think you have to ask yourself, how many of these guys do you actually want back if you're trying to build a contender? And so, it's this hard conversation and hard dialogue between, yes, these are guys who we've rooted for a year or multiple years, who we want to see succeed, who we want to grow with as fans over time. But at the same point, we want the best possible players because we want to win as much as possible. And I think that Malone, it may be painful in the short term, but I think that Malone, is clearly showing which one of those has to win out if you want Carolina overall to continue to have the success that it's had, historically speaking.
And that's the question long term. I think Carolina people, as Coach Davis definitely wanted, was that familiarity and the success. And that's a tough sell, or it's tough to pull off right now. And like you mentioned, that quartet of Tar Heels, who, as I add up the numbers, as you say it, Brendan, a combined 19 seasons played for the Tar Heels, right? And that's just not the reality. And it's interesting, not only Carolina, Indiana is making all these portal moves right now to thrust themselves to the forefront. We led with Indiana on Locked On College Basketball today because of the moves they made. And that's even before getting the commit from Ugatolu, from SMU just a bit ago. And so you see that same thing. So, Brendan, on Monday, there were these like two buckets of news for Carolina. There was the earlier in the day stuff, which was all positive and incoming. You had the Neo Abdallah news with him committing. You had Jaron Stevenson returning. You had Kim English joining the staff. And then later in the day, it was another news dump, which was kind of all about outgoing things. You had Caleb Wilson officially announcing the NBA.
How many times is he going to declare? Right?
Well, it's like I had already. It's like Pretty sure that Instagram post took care of that a week or two ago, but whatever, that's fine. There was that. There was Derek Dixon officially committing to Arizona, which had been rumored. There was Luka committing to Oklahoma State, as we all saw coming, of course. There was the Dylan Mingo news. And then there was the inside Carolina kind of thought maybe Isaiah Dennis was announcing he was coming back. And then maybe that was a little premature. We wait to see on that. But you had these two buckets with 7 or 8 different individual pieces of news, Brendan, out of all of that. Player, personnel, staff, whatever it is, what to you was the single most impactful piece of news?
Yeah, I'm a guy who likes to look forward, especially right now. I kind of consider the landscape, wide open, right? Like everybody's starting from the same position. And if you retain guys, those are ads. I don't take those for granted. So for me, it has to be the biggest ad that North Carolina is bringing in, and it's Neo Avdija. And this is a guy who entered last year as one of the top international recruits in all of college basketball. Had 33 points, had a blowout, performance against Providence early in the season. Looked like he might be trending towards first round territory. Sort of this 6'9", do it all, jumbo forward, point forward sort of deal. And that obviously didn't endure for the rest of the year. He drops off some efficiency wise, was still highly productive in the ACC. But bringing in a guy like that, I think tells you where Michael Malone's head is at, where the staff's head is at. This is a guy who can do a little bit of everything. And we'll get into this too, I'm sure, but gives you tremendous positional size. Whether he's going to play, he's going to spend time, I think, at the 1, 2, and 3 next year. Maybe he spends some time at the 4, who knows, in a smaller ball lineup. This is a guy who can play multiple positions. He's a guy who's comfortable with the ball in his hand, ball out of his hands. He's, expert at reading the pick and roll, makes great decisions, can score the ball a little bit. And again, if you surround him with other talents, like at Virginia Tech, a lot of times he had to be number 1. If on this UNC team that we think is going to come together, he winds up being the 3rd best player or the 4th best player. Now you're talking about a guy who really raises, I think, the floor for North Carolina. It was a great addition for me, and one that I think, understandably, I had a lot of my UNC fans and former guys I went to school with all texting me excited yesterday.
That's great, Brandon. I love it. Yeah, it's so funny. And I mentioned it on the show, but it's funny because his best game as a Hokie was his second game of his career against Providence, of course, hilariously and ironically enough. We'll talk Kim English later, of course. Yeah, man. I mean, this is quite literally a massive get for Carolina. He was the tallest starter for Virginia Tech last year, with both Hansberry and Toby Lawal being 6'8" guys. So as you said, man, that positional size, what Carolina, as you alluded to, could project to trot out there is just literally huge, crazy stuff. Brendan, the other big one, I think the one that was maybe most talked about was, I think there was a lot of what about Dylan Mingo from people, as people maybe a little confused about why this is happening, coming off a season where you had a major impactful 5-star in Caleb Wilson. I think maybe a lot of people not recognizing the language that I'll often use is not all 5-stars are created equal. Brendan, as you look at this move, the parting ways, I couldn't think of the official verbiage there of it all. Could you help lay out your thoughts on that? Like, in your mind, is that the right move for Michael Malone and staff?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's the right move. And I have kind of been surprised a little bit to see as much pushback to that as we have seen. A couple of things. I'll just kind of thought dump here a little bit. Number one, to your point about not all 5-stars are created equal. Not all classes are created equal. And we're coming off a freshman class that may turn out to be one of the best ever, certainly is in the conversation for the best of the modern era, the best of the last 25 years. You're looking at, a guy in Caleb Wilson, who in most drafts would be kind of a slam dunk contender to go number 1 or number 2, might fall to 4, might fall to 5. I mean, that's wild with a guy who's as talented as he is. So this class, I mean, you might not see anybody but a freshman taken in the first 10 picks. So the incoming class, however, is not to that same caliber. I would say it's actually probably one of the weaker classes. I had a high major coach tell me maybe a week or two ago when he was sort of looking at, okay, what's our portal situation going to be? He said, this is the worst high school class that I can remember since at least 2016. So this is a class that, again, that's not to say there's not going to be productive freshmen. Tyron Stokes, the number one recruit, is still up in the air for Kansas and Kentucky. And obviously UNC has Maximo coming in. I think he can be a productive player for the Tar Heels in year one.
Yep.
But if you're expecting these guys to all come in and take over the sport like we saw this season, this was the anomaly. And so that is not the case. In the case of Dylan Mingo specifically, a couple of things. Number one, when was the last time a team won it all with a freshman point guard? I'll just leave that out there. And a couple of people pointed to Stephon Castle at UConn. He was more of a two guard. He also had a fifth-year guy in Tristan Newton next to him.
And Tristan Newton, I mean, come on.
Right. And realistically, Steph Castle was the fifth best starter on that UConn team that won it all. You had Cam Spencer, you had Donovan Clingan, you had Alex Caravan, obviously. You had so many other guys where the load that would be asked of him versus someone like a Mingo, if he were to come in and start from day one, would be dramatically different. Number two, frankly, Mingo just hasn't played a ton recently. You don't necessarily know as much what you were going to get compared to somebody who, say, was in the NCAA tournament 2 weeks ago. And number three, and I think this is the biggest one, and this is something that fans are going to have to come around to eventually. It is role and money versus the five-star sort of allure. And the reality is, based on conversations I've had and my understanding, the number that Hubert Davis and his staff had earmarked for Mingo is comparable to that of what you would get for a proven, top 50 transfer in college basketball today. And that's even with this market being exorbitantly more expensive than last year's market. I can tell you for a fact that there was a high major player who's considering visiting UNC who ultimately ended up not once Jaron Stevenson announced his news, who was asking for the same amount that Dylan Mingo was supposed to be coming in for.
Wow.
And so that's money now that you can reallocate elsewhere. And so you put all of those things together, a freshman point guard. And then the last thing, not to disparage Dylan Mingo in any way, but he is a guy who, if you have seen him play before, is probably going to need some seasoning, is not a great shooter, is a great athlete, has great size, has great tools. But, for a guy in Michael Malone who's coming in wanting to run an NBA-style offense, there's only so much room for non-shooters. And so you put all those things together. I think it absolutely is the right, thing for North Carolina to have done. I think North Carolina is going to be a much older team next year. We have seen in college basketball today, you look at Michigan, you look at the UConns, the Floridas of the world, experience wins out. For all those reasons, I think it was the right decision. And I'm fascinated to see what North Carolina ends up doing with the money that it saved on Mingo.
Man, that's unreal. Brendan Marks just laying it out, point after point after bullet point after bullet point. I hope you all were taking notes, furiously scribbling. If not, go back, rewind, and listen in halftime speed. That's what I do when I'm transcribing, and you'll catch it all. No, that lays it out so clearly and plainly, and I hope everyone can get around that and kind of understand why this does make sense and what Coach Malone and everyone's trying to do. One thing that does strike me, Brendan, I thought about this as you were talking about it, with this incoming freshman class, is that AJ DeBonsa was initially part of it, reclassed up, and so he would obviously change it, but even still, the depth wouldn't be there behind him. And so, man, you bring up so many good points. And then after Monday's flurry, obviously Tuesday has not brought with it for North Carolina really much of any news. As a reminder, Isaiah Dennis has not yet made a decision, at least that we're publicly aware of right now. And then the other kind of tidbit of news is that Malloy Smith, as his father had talked about on national TV at the national championship game, is staying committed to Carolina, but he will sign tomorrow. So that's good news. Just keep that kind of family legacy going there with Baby Jet 2.0 after KJ a couple of years ago.
The NHL playoffs are here, where every shift matters, every moment is intense, and the pressure is at its highest. And just like the performance matters on the ice, it matters off the ice too. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette offers treatments designed to help you get ready and stay ready when it matters. Their top option, Rougiette Ready, combines clinically proven ingredients in a simple mint that dissolves under your tongue. They also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about confidence and feeling like yourself again. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL and get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Rougiette, performance medicine for men. Welcome back to the Big 6 in 60. Arkansas added one of the top scorers in the transfer portal, landing Georgia guard Jeremiah Wilkinson after he averaged 17.4 points per game last season. John Neighbors from Locked On Razorbacks breaks down what he'll bring to Arkansas.
Hey, basketball transfer portal, am I right or am I right? Always the fascination of all of you and what's going on and not crashing out and not getting too involved in it and all this great stuff. Well, yesterday morning, a lot of you may have woke up to some news of Arkansas adding a player from the transfer portal, which it's not news by this point in time. It's been going for nearly 24 hours, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because I'm sure you've done all your research and everything. But Cooper Bowser, or as some people say, Koopa the Troopa. Get it? Yeah, Bowser. Sorry, I'll stop. Either way, he's going to have one season of eligibility left. He's the big man from Furman, 6'11", 215 pounds. And he averaged just a little bit under 14 points and 6 rebounds per game for Furman this past year. Did not play essentially the month of January due to an injury, but when he came back, had some nice games. Arguably the second best player on the Furman team that played in the NCAA tournament, did lose to UConn, but he earned a SoCon All-Tournament first team nod for his play because he was what was huge in leading them to the NCAA tournament by winning their conference tournament in the SoCon. So there you go. You got somebody. Right? Right. I'm going to be honest. Like, this was a thing that everybody was, I won't say freaking out about, but they were wondering, okay, so what role is this guy going to be? Is this the big man that everybody was looking forward to? Is this all it is? Is this the only thing that they got going on? No, and no. Folks, this is a big man who will probably be your fourth option at big, and that's it. This is not some sort of conspiracy of like, okay, well, this is who they were after all along and that's it. No, it's nothing like that. This is a guy that's going to help your team be able to alleviate somebody who may be in foul trouble or whatever it is. And I'm great with it. I could not be happier with it, actually. It's so awesome. I love something like that because of the fact that you have more work to do and he could be a good complementary piece. But you also have to understand, folks, like, we all want the best players. Everybody wants the best players. You want to be able to just go out there and say, hey, we want the 1, 2, 3, 4 guys in the transfer portal all going to come to the same school and all be happy with it and put together a national championship. Sure, but that's not how it works. The higher the transfer portal rank into individual players, the more so that there's going to be an understanding or an expectation that those guys are going to be the ones that get the ball the most. The offense is going to run through them. They're going to be the superstars. They're going to have to be paid more. And if those guys look at a place like Arkansas, especially the bigs, and see that John Calipari and the Arkansas team and offense is not going to run through the big man, it's not going to be something that they have to run through the big man, guess what they're going to do? They're not going to go to Arkansas because they see Jordan Smith Jr. They see Malik Thomas potentially coming back. They see Billy Richmond. They see even a Malik Ewan, assuming that he can come back. Guys who are offensive pieces. That's not even to mention the Abdou Toure or J.J. Andrews. Who knows what they're going to do offensively. But the point is, the identity and then the main thing about this team and the main progress that they're going to make about this team is not going to be based solely on, oh, well, get the big man down there, feed him down low, and he's going to lead the team. No. He's not going to be the feature. So because of that fact, that's why a player like this with Cooper Bowser is so important. Because you got to find that right balance of somebody who's willing to play their role. Yes, they want to get money. Yes, they want NIL. Yes, they want to play. But they also understand that this is a circumstance that could benefit them by taking on a particular role. And that role being something that is important and can be utilized and can be something that can help you out when the NCAA tournament really gets roaring for Arkansas. And that's what this is. And that's all I'm taking it as. But the idea that's like, okay, well, you just got to get all these big men that were averaging 20 and 9. It's not the case. You need defense. You need bodies. You need able sizes. But you can't afford to get somebody in here and overpay or promise them anything where they walk in and they feel lied to because they're not the man. They're not the best player on the team. Or even in some cases may not even be the best top 3 players on the team. You got to be able to sell that to them. And so I'm fine with this. But what's next? What do you do from here? What opens up? I know that there are some players that are in the mix that people have brought up, and players that are going to be taking some visits and getting some interest from Arkansas and all of that. Some of them guards, some of them some bigs and some forwards and everything. Wouldn't surprise me at all if there was another announcement today of some sort of piece of news. It seems like every day this week so far we've had some news, so maybe we'll get lucky and have that again here. But I just hope everybody understands that there is a level to this. There's a way that you need to view this through a certain lens to where you can't get greedy and can't get upset because it's not the name player that you want right here, right now. I like this kid, and I think he'll be a complimentary piece, but it would have been a completely different animal if Arkansas would have had the big name, big player, big man down low that they may end up getting going first and committing first and then following it up with somebody like Cooper Bowser. Because then it'd be like, hey, we already got our big guy. This is just a complimentary piece. Where when this guy ends up committing first, guess what? Everyone's like, oh, geez. Well, this is not good. He's going to be our big. He's our main guy. It's just not the right way to look at it. It's not really that fair. So let's see how it plays out. I know I keep saying that, but that's honestly, truly the main thing. And Cal's a genius when it comes to keeping things tight-lipped. I don't know how he does it. I'm impressed by it. But hopefully he continues on to do it.
Welcome back to the Big 6 in 60. Eagles fans heard from Howie Roseman with the draft a week away, and his press conference offered clues about roster depth and things like that, but also a lot of conversation about Jalen Hurts. Louis DiBiase from Locked On Eagles explains.
Howie Roseman's press conference today, he met with the media, as did head coach Nick Sirianni, as they do every year the week before the NFL draft, talking all things draft, although didn't give us a whole lot of details about their draft plans for next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The bigger takeaways from this press conference, I think, had to do mostly with the Jalen Hurts articles that dropped a few weeks ago. Very critical about Jalen inside that building, maybe not being as coachable as we think, maybe not being as big of a leader as we might think. And Howie was asked directly about those articles. And although Roseman was definitely critical of people inside the building, maybe not being direct and honest with their players, kind of critiquing the way that some people inside that building are going about sharing this information anonymously through the media instead of addressing these things head on inside of the building. Although he was critical about that, and I really applaud him for that, because that's been a pet peeve of mine with this organization since, I don't know, like the anonymous stories about Carson Wentz in 2018, in 2019. It feels like this is always an issue in Philadelphia when there are ups and downs of a season or two. You look at 2023, this was a problem. You look at, of course, this year, 2025, 2018, 2019, 2020. Anytime the Eagles don't meet expectations, it always feels like there's a lot of anonymous people inside South Philadelphia's Eagles complex that have things to say. And I like that Roseman kind of went after them. But at the same time, he kind of had an opportunity, like all the A.J. Brown trade questions, Howie has opportunities to completely shoot these things down. And he doesn't. And that is absolutely calculated. And when you look at the quote from the Jalen Hurts question today, I don't know. I don't think it was like defensive enough of Jalen to show his long-term belief in his QB1. But you be the judge. Let me read the quote here from Howie Roseman. Quote, "Yeah, I have seen those reports. Their PR staff does a great job of showing us what we need to see. I would say that we have some faults. One is not being direct and honest with our players and the conversations with our players. So for us, if we have any issues with any of our players, we talk to them directly. From my perspective, from Nick's perspective, from Jeffrey's perspective, we're not hiding behind anything. We will talk to our players directly. I think that is unfair. It's unfair to have these articles written, but I understand it's also what sells at this point. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate." It feels like more he's critiquing the way the message is being conveyed rather than the actual context of what is being said. Do you know what I mean? Like Howie Roseman never once said in any of that, in any of today's press conference, that all of that is wrong. Jalen Hurts is a very coachable player. He is a great leader. We like the player he has become. We are still building around his current talents, and we feel like we can still win multiple championships with Jalen Hurts as our quarterback. Like, that's not what he said. Obviously, he said the story is unfortunate and it's not fair. Like, that's definitely defensive of Jalen, but I don't know. That doesn't feel like a ringing endorsement. He also talked about if we have problems with our players, we talk about it to them. And it didn't sound like there are no problems with Jalen Hurts. And I think there are, obviously. That's why they are scrapping the playbook and, adding a new scheme to the 2026 offense. But I don't know. It's interesting to me. It's noteworthy because every time Howie Roseman talks, specifically about Jalen Hurts, I don't want to say he's out on Jalen, that he doesn't believe in Hurts as his franchise quarterback. Howie Roseman has definitely bought in to Jalen's elite traits. In a young part of Jalen's career, Howie has built around his mobility, his clutch gene, his deep ball, and it's been able to work with a great roster. It's allowed them to win a championship and to make multiple Super Bowl runs and make the playoffs every single year. But when it comes to the long-term future, does Howie believe Jalen's going to be the guy when he's 30, when he's 33, when he's 35? Obviously, that's a long ways away into the future, but I don't know. Like, every time I hear Jeffrey Lurie talk about Jalen Hurts, the guy glows. He raves about Jalen as the face of the franchise. And then when Howie talks, I don't know. It's like never super descriptive. It's never overly complimentary. And maybe that's just Howie now because of all the ups and downs he's gone through with players like Carson Wentz. And maybe he feels like he might jinx himself. He's kind of defensive of that because you never know how these players are going to turn at any moment. But this is also the GM that, remember, at one point in Jalen's career, he tried to replace him with a trade for Russell Wilson, a trade for Deshaun Watson. He explored trading up the board back in 2021 for Zach Wilson. And obviously these things were, years ago now. There's been 4 seasons that have happened since. But remember, Howie Roseman took Jalen Hurts to be a backup quarterback in 2020. Again, he's become more bought in as the years have gone on. He's embraced Jalen as he's proven him and all of us wrong and has built around him beautifully. And it's helped them win a title. But I just wonder for the future how Howie Roseman feels. And based on the way he talks, it's hard to really get a good sense. I'm not saying it's the opposite where he's completely out on Jalen too, but I don't think he is as sold, comparatively speaking, as the owner. And today was just another instance of, again, he didn't say anything wrong. He definitely defended Jalen to a degree, saying the articles were, quote, unfair, but I just feel like he could have went further. Same thing with the A.J. Brown stuff. If Howie Roseman wanted to end all of these trade rumors, he could literally do it tomorrow. He could say to the media, we're not trading A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is a long-term piece of the puzzle on offense moving forward with this new scheme. We intend to compete for a Super Bowl in 2026, and A.J. is a huge part of that. He will be on our roster week 1. We are not trading A.J. Brown unless you offer us 2 to 3 first-round picks. Unless you give me an offer I can't refuse. To quote The Godfather, he is going to be an Eagle. Howie Roseman has not done that. He didn't do that today with Jalen Hurts either. Maybe I'm looking too much into it. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate in the comment section for this one because everybody's team QB1, and as am I. I think Jalen Hurts is going to prove everybody wrong again in 2026. But I don't know. I found that to be noteworthy in today's press conference.
That's all for today's Big 6 in 60. If you follow basketball, football, or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has a half hour on the biggest news in the NFL, the NBA, and on campus, going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA, the Big 3 in 30 NFL, or the Big 3 in 30 college, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 6 in 60.